I called my loan company to ask about the mysterious payments showing up on my student loans. The representative told me, "Your mother-in-law has been making those payments for the past 2 years." She then read my loan account number back to me as if it was completely normal, "Ma'am, I'm showing 11 consecutive payments of $1,500 from an external account ending in 4471. The account holder is listed as Beverly Ashford Whitmore." I stood in the cereal aisle of the Kroger on Route 9, a box of Cheerios in one hand, and my phone pressed so hard against my ear it left a mark. My mother-in-law's full name, spoken by a stranger in a call center in Ohio, hit me like a slap. "That's not possible," I said. "I make my own loan payments." "You do, ma'am. This is in addition to your payments. Your balance is actually $36,000 lower than your last statement." I set the Cheerios down on top of a display of granola bars and didn't pick them back up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to lean against the shelf because I knew in that instant, standing in a grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon in March, that Beverly hadn't done this out of kindness. Beverly didn't do anything out of kindness. I'd been married to Paul Whitmore for 2 years and 3 months when I found out his mother had been secretly paying down my student loans. My name is Renata Cole. I kept my maiden name, which was itself a minor scandal in the Whitmore family, and I taught 8th grade English at Jefferson Middle School in Charlotte, North Carolina. $41,000 a year, summers off, a classroom full of second-hand paperbacks I bought myself because the district budget didn't stretch that far. Beverly Ashford Whitmore had never once in 2 years looked at me without a flicker of something behind her eyes that I can only describe as accounting. Like she was calculating my net worth and finding the number embarrassing. She was the widow of a man who'd built a regional chain of auto dealerships and died, leaving her comfortable enough that she never had to work again. And she carried herself like old money, even though the money was barely a generation old. She lunched at the Carolina Country Club on Wednesdays. She wore her wedding ring turned inward, diamond against her palm so it doesn't catch on things. Though I always suspected it was so she wouldn't have to look at it and remember she used to love someone who wasn't rich when she married him. Paul was an only child and architect, kind in the specific, slightly oblivious way of men who have never had to fight for anything. He loved his mother with the uncomplicated loyalty of someone who'd never seen her be cruel to someone he loved, because until me, she never had reason to be. The first time I met her, she'd looked at my shoes, flats from Target, scuffed at the toe from 3 years of hallway duty and said, "Well, at least you're practical." I told myself it was nothing. New mother-in-law jitters. I told myself that for 2 years, I should have listened to my stomach instead of my hope. Loop 1, 6 months into the marriage. Paul mentioned almost as an aside over dinner that his mother had asked for my social security number and loan account information for the wedding gift. I remembered signing something at the reception, a card. I thought some kind of registry thing his mother's assistant handled. I didn't think twice about it. Weddings are chaos, you sign things. I told myself it was probably for a trust fund transfer, some tax paperwork. Rich families do things like that. I didn't ask enough questions, that's on me. And I've made my peace with that mistake mostly. Loop 2, 8 months in, I noticed my loan servicer's app showing a payment I didn't remember making on a day I definitely hadn't logged in. I texted Paul, "Did you pay something on my loans?" He said no, laughing, said he wished he had that kind of spare cash lying around. An architect 3 years into his own career carrying his own debt from grad school, I called the SUR. A representative named Deshan told me the payment had come from an external account and that the account holder requested the transaction remain unlisted on your monthly statement summary. Which is a setting the primary account holder, that's you, can disable at any time. I disabled it. I told myself it was probably some kind of processing error. I didn't disable it hard enough, apparently, because 3 months later, the same thing happened again. And I let it go because I was tired and because some small, ugly part of me, the part that grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom working double shifts at a diner, thought, maybe it's a gift. Maybe I don't have to question every good thing that happens to me. That was my mistake, I know that now. Loop 3. At Thanksgiving, Beverly made a comment about investments paying off that I brushed past because she said a dozen cryptic, self-satisfied things every holiday. And I'd learned not to chase all of them down. My stomach dropped anyway, just for a second, the way it does when your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. Loop 4. In February, I actually tried to get to the bottom of it. I called the loan servicer directly and asked them to block all third-party payments on my account entirely. The representative, a woman named Tanisha Reyes, told me she'd flag it, but that the account holder, Beverly, had submitted a notarized authorization form months earlier with my forged signature on it, giving her standing permission to make payments on behalf of the primary borrower. I didn't know that yet. I only knew the block request got quietly reversed within 3 weeks, and nobody could tell me why. That's when my hands started shaking every time my phone rang with an unknown number. I tried in my own small way to investigate. I pulled my full credit report on a Sunday night while Paul was asleep, scrolling through it on my laptop at the kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold beside me. Nothing seemed wrong on the surface. No new accounts had been opened in my name, no unfamiliar addresses, nothing that would have triggered a fraud alert. Whatever Beverly was doing, she was doing it carefully, staying within limits that wouldn't set off any automated system. That should have frightened me more than it did. Instead, I told myself the comforting lie people cling to when the truth feels too overwhelming. If it were really serious, someone would have discovered it by now. I even asked Paul once, gently over dinner, whether his mother had ever asked him for anything else connected to me, documents, account numbers, passwords. He looked at me with such genuine confusion that I dropped the subject immediately, embarrassed for even asking. As though doubting Beverly was somehow a flaw in my character, instead of a reasonable response to 2 years of cold smiles and subtle insults about my shoes. I think about that dinner all the time now. The truth was sitting right there between the pasta and the garlic bread, yet neither of us saw it. Loop 5, the phone call in the cereal aisle. That brings me back to Kroger, $36,000, 2 years of secret payments. $1,500 every month, right on schedule, like a woman quietly running a business using my financial life without ever saying a word to me. I abandoned my cart in the aisle and drove straight to the Carolina Country Club. I knew Beverly's Wednesday lunch routine was as predictable as the tides. I found them on the terrace, Beverly dressed in cream linen, Paul wearing the blue Oxford shirt I'd ironed that morning. Both of them were halfway through glasses of iced tea with mint sprigs that probably cost more than my classroom's book budget. "We need to talk about my loans," I said, no small talk. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Beverly gave me the same cold smile she'd worn at my wedding, the one that never reached her eyes. "Finally noticed, did you?" Paul's face brightened with surprise. "Mom, you knew about this." He looked at me. "This is incredible, Ren, thank you." He reached for his mother's hand. Beverly never looked at him. She kept her eyes fixed on me, and there was something almost hungry in them. "I wasn't helping you, dear," she said. "I was investing." My stomach dropped with that awful weightless feeling of a roller coaster plunging downhill. She opened her Chanel bag and pulled out a thick manila folder, neatly tabbed and perfectly organized. It was obvious she hadn't prepared it that morning. She'd been carrying it, waiting for this moment. "Every payment was a loan," she said, sliding the folder across the table like a winning hand. "With interest compounded monthly, at a rate I consider quite generous given your credit profile. You now owe me $42,000. Paul grabbed the first page, scanning it quickly as the color drained from his face. "Mom. What is this?" "It's business, sweetheart." She patted his hand without even looking at him. I knew she'd never be able to handle those loans on a teacher's salary, not while trying to live the way our family does, so I created an opportunity for her. I stared at the contract. I had never seen it before. The signature at the bottom looked almost like mine. Almost. My middle initial was wrong. I never used my middle initial. "I never signed this," I said. "You can't transfer my debt to yourself and then charge me interest." I said it louder than I intended. A waiter near the drink station glanced toward us. Beverly laughed, a soft, cruel sound like delicate glass cracking. "Actually, I can. I've been making the payments using your information for 2 years, your account numbers. Your social security number." Paul gave them to me when I arranged your wedding gift. Paul went as pale as the tablecloth. That was only for the wedding gift, Mom." "That's all?" Beverly didn't even blink. "You benefited from this arrangement for 2 years without objecting. My attorney calls that implied consent." She folded her hands calmly. "You have 90 days to repay the full amount, or I'll place a lien against your marital assets." "We don't have $42,000, I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. Her smile grew even wider. I know, she said, which is why I have another option. She slid a second document across the white tablecloth. It had an official-looking letterhead I didn't recognize. It was addressed to the North Carolina State Board of Education. My name was typed neatly across the top. Sign away your teaching license, Beverly said, and I'll forgive the entire debt. My license, I stared at her. Why would you even want that? I don't want it, she replied calmly. I want you not to have it. Without your license, you'll have to leave the state to find similar work. Eventually, Paul will realize that long-distance relationships don't last for people like us. Then we can find him someone more appropriate. Paul shot to his feet so quickly that his water glass tipped over, ice scattering across the white linen. You're trying to destroy my marriage. I'm trying to save you from it, Beverly answered without raising or lowering her voice. She's beneath us, Paul, a public school teacher. You could have married the Hamilton girl. Her father owns 3 factories. People at nearby tables had started watching. A waiter lingered uncertainly beside us. Beverly didn't care. If anything, she spoke even louder. You embarrass yourself every time you defend her, she told Paul. Everyone here can see exactly what she is. My face burned beneath the afternoon sun. Paul's jaw tightened so hard I could see the muscle twitching, but he never let go of my hand. Beverly remained perfectly calm despite every eye on the terrace watching us. 72 hours, she said, taking another sip of iced tea as casually as if she'd been discussing the weather. We didn't say a word during the drive home. Paul held the folder in his lap as though it might burst into flames. Once we reached the kitchen, we spread every document across the table, the fake loan agreement, the forged signature, the letter to the Board of Education. It all looked expensive. It looked frighteningly real, the kind of lie that seems believable when someone with enough money and lawyers builds it carefully. She's been planning this for 2 years, Paul said. His voice cracked on the word years in a way I'd never heard before. He reached for his phone. I stopped him by placing my hand over his. Wait, I said. Look at this. Near the bottom of the folder, I'd found a payment history. Each transfer listed the same funding source, not Beverly's personal checking account, but the Ashford Family Educational Trust, Paul's grandmother's trust. His father's mother had died 9 years earlier after setting aside money specifically for the education and medical expenses of her direct descendants and their spouses. Paul had mentioned it only once early in our relationship. There was no repayment clause or interest. It was a gift by design. His eyes widened. Your direct family, he said. You're my wife. That makes you a beneficiary, I nodded, my pulse quickening, and trust distributions are gifts, Paul. Legally, she can't turn a gift into a loan just because she wants leverage. That night, we called the family's estate attorney, Gerald Marsh, who had helped draft Paul's grandmother's trust. After reviewing the original trust document, he confirmed every payment made to me was an irrevocable gift. There is no legal way to convert a completed trust gift into a personal loan, he said. Whatever your mother had Paul sign has no legal standing. Then he added something even worse. To access those trust funds as she had, Beverly would have had to file false trust paperwork for 2 years, misrepresenting every payment. Paul's face went pale. This wasn't just manipulation anymore, it was fraud. Following Gerald's advice, we let professionals handle everything. Forensic accountant Marcus Delgado reviewed the records and found 24 false filings, all disguised as emergency medical assistance. Detective Karen Whitfield confirmed the forged signature alone was a felony, along with identity theft and trust fraud. Then the investigation expanded. Richard Ashford, the trust's co-trustee, requested a full audit which uncovered 61 false trust filings over 5 years. Beverly hadn't just targeted me, she had been abusing the trust for years. When Beverly's 90-day deadline arrived, she called expecting payment. Instead, Paul calmly told her Detective Whitfield, Marcus Delgado, and Richard's attorney already had the evidence. There was a long silence before he hung up. Within days, formal investigations moved forward. Beverly's attorney tried to intimidate us with a cease and desist letter, but Gerald dismissed it as an empty bluff. The case eventually became public. Beverly faced charges including forgery, identity theft, and financial fraud. The trust removed her control, the fake $42,000 debt was officially erased, and my name was completely cleared. Beverly later accepted a plea agreement, avoiding jail but paying restitution and serving probation. It wasn't a dramatic ending, but justice was served. The biggest change was Paul. He finally stopped making excuses for his mother and accepted who she really was. 8 months later, we moved to Asheville, where I now teach 8th grade English. We still keep a copy of the forged loan document, not out of revenge but as a reminder that we survived it. Beverly still sends Paul a Christmas card every year. He never replies. Eventually, without a word, it ends up in the recycling.